Hi, this is Unit 3 and it's a continuation on 3.06 Find a Place to Live 1, and we're starting on slide 18. A unique market. The housing market is unique in many ways. Housing is a good needed by everyone, but prices can fluctuate dramatically, leaving some people feeling like they made a great investment and others feeling that it made more sense to wait. Housing market review. Test your understanding of the forces that affect supply, demand, and prices in the housing market. Sort the scenarios into the kind of market each would lead to. Drag and drop the words to their appropriate boxes. Incorrect answers return to the top. So you can go ahead and do that on your own. Because of the unique nature of the housing market, the types of available housing differ from region to region. For instance, the options available to someone who wants to live in the middle of a big and bustling city are quite different than those available to someone who would prefer to live in the country. The regional differences are largely the result of supply and demand in the housing market, but there are other factors as well. Because most people want a home that reflects their character, they often make purchasing decisions in the housing market that ignore typical cost-benefit analyses. Population density. The difference in housing prices between an urban area and a rural area is largely the result of population density. High population density means that a large number of people live in a relatively small geographic area. The world's largest cities, Tokyo, Mexico City, New York City, and Shanghai, all have high population density. Population density has an important effect on the housing market. For instance, in Manhattan, the heart of New York City, there's an average of 66,940 people for every square mile of land. That is an extremely high number of people for a small amount of space. Demand for housing in Manhattan far exceeds supply, and prices are high. By contrast, Wyoming is a state with very low population density. In Wyoming, the average is 5 people for every square mile of land. That gives each person a lot more space than Manhattan offers. And since much of that space is not used for living purposes, demand is much lower than supply. On average, therefore, land is far less expensive in Wyoming than in Manhattan. Density and housing prices. In 2012, the median home price in Manhattan was $890,000. That means that half of all homes sold for less than $890,000 and half sold for more. Contrast this with the median home price in Cheyenne, Wyoming's largest city. In that same year, the median income price in Cheyenne was $150,700. For the median price of a home in Manhattan, you could buy nearly 6 homes in Cheyenne. This demonstrates the potential for significant differences in pricing between an urban area with high population density and a rural area with low density. Where the action is. Cities and rural areas have many other differences as well. They offer different ways of life that appeal to all kinds of people. Although it may be more expensive to purchase a home in Manhattan, the median income there is $47,030 per year, while the median income in Cheyenne is $39,000 per year. So, while the median income in Manhattan is about 5% higher than it is in Cheyenne, the median home price is well above 400% higher. So the chance to earn a higher income does not entirely explain why some people choose the city over the country. The availability of more jobs and higher paying jobs is just one of many factors explaining differences between rural and urban housing prices. Other differences are non-monetary. Rural homeowners typically enjoy more privacy and have greater access to outdoor recreational activities. Rural areas also tend to have lower crime rates, fewer traffic jams, and more serenity. Urban dwellers, on the other hand, enjoy the benefits of city life. These benefits include access to a wide variety of cultural and social establishments, including restaurants, movie theaters, museums, and shopping centers. Big cities attract a wide number of people from all over the world, making urban life dynamic and exciting. Urbanization. Because of the high cost of housing in big cities, rental units make up the majority of housing in many densely populated urban areas. A small percentage of people in cities own their homes than do those. I'm sorry, let me start at that again. A smaller percentage of people in cities own their homes than do those in rural areas. Many people who live in a city are willing to give up the potential long-term financial benefit of home ownership in exchange for the increased economic and cultural opportunities available in the city. The movement from rural areas to cities in search of economic benefits accelerated greatly following the Industrial Revolution of the 1800s. Before then, the majority of the people in the United States, and in most other countries, lived in rural areas. By 1900, however, only 60% of the U.S. population lived in rural areas. 50 years later, that number had dropped to 36%, and by 1990, only 25% of the population lived in rural areas. Today, approximately 80% of the people in the United States live in an urban setting. The reasons for this long-term migration from the country to the city are largely economic and technological. As agriculture became mechanized, the need for farm labor decreased, and people who formerly worked on farms went to cities to find work. The suburbs. The effect of high demand for housing in urban areas can cause housing prices to rise beyond the reach of many middle-class families. When people cannot afford to buy housing in an urban area and they do not want to pay rent, they have to look elsewhere for housing. As housing prices rose in the United States cities during the 1950s, a new solution presented itself. With the development and widespread use of the automobile, people could live farther away from the city while still having access to the economic benefits it provides. This explains the growth of the suburbs. Suburbs are residential areas near a large city. When agriculture became more efficient and required less land, farmland around cities was sold off at relatively low prices. This paved the way for developers to build numerous single-family units. City dwellers began flocking to the suburbs, where they felt they could enjoy the benefits of rural life while still having access to all the advantages of the city. Some people are so keen to own their own homes that many of them now live in far-flung exurbs, which are rural areas even farther from the cities than the suburbs. People in exurbs often have to commute an hour or more to and from work. Urban renewal. Although the development of suburbs has allowed many people to become homeowners, it has created environmental problems too. Because people who live in suburbs usually rely on automobiles to get around, they create pollution. Also, it is much more energy efficient to heat or cool many small, connected apartments than a number of larger, unconnected houses. As urban dwellers left cities for the more rural suburbs and exurbs, demand for urban property declined in some big cities. Eventually, prices declined. Developers began purchasing housing in cities as these lowered prices and instituted a program known as urban renewal. After a period of urban renewal, a city becomes desirable again. Demand for housing increases and housing prices go up. City versus country. Each type of living situation has advantages and disadvantages. The nature of these advantages and disadvantages, along with factors such as available land and the law of supply and demand, has led to very different housing markets in different areas. Some of the reasons for this are purely financial, such as the availability of jobs and the supply of investment for housing. Others are non-monetary, such as access to museums and outdoor activities. Housing prices and housing development patterns follow a complex set of rules that can go beyond purely economic considerations. Urban versus rural review. Sort the characteristics into each column to test your knowledge of the differences between urban and rural areas. Drag and drop the words to their appropriate boxes. Then click Check Me. Incorrect selections return to the top. So go ahead and you can complete that on your own. And that does bring us to the end of 3.06, Find a Place to Live 1. If you have any questions, let me know. And the next recording will be 3.07, Find a Place to Live 2. Bye everyone.